Many of us will be familiar with the historical film Gladiator 2, the long-awaited sequel to the Gladiator film which got released in the year 2000. And the sequel took viewers back to ancient Rome, allowing us to see the Gladiator story continue to be told through Maximus' son Lucius. But this was not the original plans for Gladiator 2, as plans for a sequel to Gladiator were being discussed all the way back in the mid-2000s. And Russell Crowe in particular was keen to return as Maximus despite his character dying at the end of the original film. And to bring Maximus back to the big screen, Crowe would approach his friend Nick Cave, who is a scriptwriter and musician, and present him with an unusual request. Write a sequel script that would bring Maximus back from the dead and have him fighting against tyranny once again. And upon hearing this peculiar demand, Cave asked what any sane and rational person would have in this type of situation. Didn't you die in Gladiator 1? How am I supposed to bring you back? Crowe's response was simple and straight to the point. Yeah, you sort that out. And this brief discussion between two friends and colleagues would lead to one of the most bizarre, confusing and ambitious sequel scripts ever written, with the working title for this film being Gladiator 2 Christ Killer. The opening scene in Cave's script starts off with Maximus awakening not in the heavenly wheat field he envisioned, but in what Cave describes as a sodden wilderness, essentially a rain-soaked purgatory filled with human anguish and despair. This afterlife was depicted as a massive refugee camp on the edge of a flat, black sea populated by the inconsequential, the unnamed, and the insignificant. And in this purgatory, Maximus encounters a guy named Mordecai, who leads him to a decaying temple where the Roman gods Jupiter, Apollo, Mars, Pluto, Neptune, and Mercury have all convened waiting for Maximus to arrive. However, these deities are not the powerful and fearsome gods of Roman society one would imagine, but in this script they are portrayed as frail, petty old men who have lost their power due to the rising influence of Christianity and the growing worship of Jesus across Rome. And due to their plight, the dying Roman gods offer Maximus a deal: eliminate Hephaestus, a rogue deity who has embraced Christianity, and they will reunite him with his deceased wife and son. Maximus agrees to these terms, but the gods deceive him, and instead of sending Maximus after Hephaestus, they transport him back to the world of the living with a different and more brutal mission to complete. Maximus finds himself transported through time and space, emerging from the body of a dying Christian warrior in Gaul, which is modern-day France, approximately 15 years after the events of the original film. He witnesses a brutal massacre of Christians led by Lucius, the son of Lucilla and nephew of Commodus. And Maximus is horrified to see that Lucius has grown up to become just as cruel, tyrannical, and power-hungry as his mad uncle Commodus. And this resurrection scene in particular was highly important to Ridley Scott's vision for a sequel to Gladiator, as Ridley Scott explained in an interview that the only way of doing Gladiator 2 was to go to another battle, and through a dying warrior spirit, Maximus would come back, giving him his portal back to Earth. These events lead us directly into the second act of Cave's script, which focuses primarily on the historical persecution of early Christians under Emperor Decius' rule, during which he had enacted an edict requiring all Roman citizens to make a sacrifice to the Roman gods, or face a brutal and bloody death for refusing. And during these turbulent times, Maximus finds himself entangled within many Christian communities, and he eventually meets his son Meridius, who is now a grown man and a devout Christian as well. And during this chapter, Maximus ultimately discovers that the gods have tricked him into a mission where he isn't expected to just destroy Hephaestus, but to eliminate all of Christianity instead. After this revelation comes the final and most audacious act of the script, in which Maximus is forced to kill his own son, but his son ends up being no mere mortal but actually a Christ-like figure, and his death unleashes a curse upon Maximus, forcing him to become an eternal warrior, who is cursed to fight in every major conflict throughout human history, unable to find peace or reunite with his family ever again. Cave has stated that he envisioned the film's climax being a 20-minute war sequence showing Maximus fighting through different periods of history, and according to Cave's description, this montage would include the Crusades and the medieval holy wars between Christians and Muslims, World War II with Maximus fighting alongside modern armies, the Vietnam War, and various other historical conflicts spanning across many centuries and lands. After this 20-minute climax of Maximus fighting in many different battles, the final scene of the script presents an even more shocking revelation at its conclusion, with the story jumping to the present day where Maximus is revealed to be working at the Pentagon in modern-day Washington, D.C., and Maximus is described as being in a contemporary setting, wearing a business suit and working as what appears to be either a government official or military advisor. He is shown in a Pentagon bathroom adjusting his tie while looking in a mirror before leaving to attend an important meeting. And this would be the final scene of the script for Gladiator 2 Christ Killer, which is very different and I'm going to say worse than the Gladiator 2 version, which did eventually get released many years later. And it appears I'm not the only person who didn't find the script to be appealing, as according to Nick Cave, Russell Crowe had a brutal and short response for him after reading the script that Russell Crowe had commissioned to be written in the first place. And all Russell said was, "I don't like it, mate," with Crowe seeming to be particularly put off by the script's relentlessly dark ending, where Maximus never finds the peace he fought so hard for in the original film. In fact, it wasn't only Russell Crowe who thought this was a ludicrous way to continue Maximus' story, as even Nick Cave himself admitted that he enjoyed writing the script for Gladiator 2 precisely because I knew on every level that it was never going to get made, referring to the sequel as a popcorn dropper, which is industry slang for a script so outrageous and nonsensical that it would make audiences leave theaters and showings of the film. Therefore, since Russell Crowe, Ridley Scott, and Nick Cave did not like this idea for a Gladiator sequel, all plans for Gladiator 2 would get shelved for decades. But Ridley Scott would eventually release a more plausible and realistic sequel more than 20 years after the original film's release, with Gladiator 2 continuing the story of Maximus, Lucilla, and Lucius better than Gladiator 2 Christ Killer ever could have. So let me know in the comments down below if you enjoyed this video on the original script and idea for Gladiator 2, and if you are glad this idea got shelved, or if you would have preferred to have seen the sequel get released to cinemas instead. And as always, if you love anything to do with historical movies and historical TV shows, then subscribe to my channel History Spark, and thank you so much for watching. Have a great day. Bye.